Alexander Kane was a billionaire. The kind people whispered about, admired, envied. Some even feared him. He built tech empires from nothing, reshaped industries, and made his first 100 million before the age of 30. But no one ever really knew him. Not his assistants, not his business partners, not the strangers who smiled at him on magazine covers. And he preferred it that way. He didn't respond, didn't smile. He just nodded, set the coffee down, and walked past walls made of glass and silence. Tucked away in a quiet corner of his penthouse was the only personal thing he owned, a single photograph, worn at the edges, taken decades ago. His little sister, Emily, she was the only person who ever really knew him, and she was gone. They were poor once, living in a one-bedroom apartment with a mother who worked 2 jobs and smiled even when she was too tired to stand. Back then, Alexander was just a boy with big dreams and a little sister who believed he could do anything. He told her he'd grow up, get rich, and take care of her forever. But forever didn't last. Emily got sick, and there wasn't enough money for treatment. One hospital turned them away, then another. He never forgot the sound of her coughing at night or how light her body felt the day they carried her away. He promised her he'd make it out. He just didn't know that in doing so, he'd leave himself behind. So, he built walls. Not just around his office, not just around his apartment, but around his heart. People asked him in interviews, "What drives you? Where do you find your motivation? What do you want the world to remember about you?" He gave polished answers. But the truth, he didn't care about legacy. He didn't believe in love. And he certainly didn't believe in fate. But fate doesn't ask permission. That night, as Kane stepped out of yet another 5-star restaurant, just like he had 1,000 times before, something changed. He was halfway to his car when a voice, small and steady, cut through the noise of the city. "Little girl," softly, "Excuse me, sir, are you going to eat that?" He stops, looks around. A young girl, maybe 9, stands just beyond the shadows. Dirty jacket, shoes falling apart, but her eyes, brave. Narrator gentle. In that moment, everything slowed down. He blinked. She looked up at him again, nervous, but not begging. "My mama hasn't eaten in 2 days." He didn't say a word. Just looked down at her dot, then at the bag in his hand. Then back at her dot, something twisted in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. She lowered her head, turned, and started to walk away. Kane just watched. He could have left. He should have left. But instead, he followed her. Soft ambient music. Footsteps echo on the wet sidewalk. The billionaire walks slowly, a bag of food in one hand, curiosity in his eyes. He had no idea why he was following her. A billionaire, in a $1,000 coat, walking 2 steps behind a little girl, who had just asked for scraps. Lila weaving through alleys, past flickering street lamps. Kane stays at a distance. She walked quickly, but carefully. Her shoes had holes in them. She avoided puddles like it was a game. She played every day. There was no fear in her steps, only purpose. He hadn't been in this part of the city in years. Not since long before the suits, the skyscrapers, the silence. Lila disappears into a crumbling apartment building. Kane stops across the street. No security, no doorman. Just a busted buzzer and a door left open with a brick. He steps closer and hears something. Interior, dimly lit hallway. Kane stands outside the door, unseen. Inside, Lila speaks softly. "Lila, off-screen mama. I got some food. Sorry it's cold. I tried to get soup, but this man gave me his dinner instead. Smells fancy." Kane quietly leans in, listening. His face changes, not pity, recognition. Inside, Lila sets the food on the table, half-eaten steak, a dinner roll, a slice of untouched cake. She cuts it in half and hands it to her mother. It's lying on a worn mattress on the floor. Maria, the mother, coughs, tries to sit up. Maria weakly, "Where'd you get this, baby?" "Lila, it's okay, mama. I didn't steal it. A rich man gave it to me." Maria tries to smile. Her eyes are tired. Her lips cracked. But she touches Lila's face like she's gold. Maria, you're too good for this world, sweetheart. Leela sits beside her, humming softly as she feeds her mom. Leela, we're gonna be okay. I promise. I'll figure something out. You'll see. Kane's POV. He closes his eyes. Deep breath. Something in him shifts. Narrator. She wasn't begging. She wasn't angry. She was trying to hold the world together with nothing but a slice of cake and a promise. Flashbacks flash in his mind. His sister Emily, lying pale in a hospital bed, smiling weakly at him, saying, "You're gonna save people one day, Alex. Just don't forget to save yourself too." He didn't cry. He never cried. But that night, something cracked. Next morning, Kane is in a grocery store. Odd for him, he hasn't shopped in decades. He doesn't know where things are. He fumbles with a basket. People stare. He ignores them. He buys soup, crackers, medicine, juice boxes, a stuffed bunny. No idea if it's too much or not enough. Exterior, same apartment building. Kane walks up quietly and sets a box down in front of the door. No note, no name. Then he walks away fast, like if he stayed he might change his mind. Interior a moment later. Door creaks open. Lila peeks out, looks left and right. No one there. She sees the box. Opens it. Eyes go wide. Lila's soft gasp. "Mama, we got groceries." Maria sits up slowly. She's shocked. Suspicious. "Maria, who brought this?" "Leela, I don't know. Maybe the rich man." Narrator. He could have walked away, he should have. But for the first time in years, he didn't want to. Back in the penthouse, Kane places the photo of his sister Emily on his desk. He whispers to it, "Maybe it's not too late." Alexander Kane. Didn't return the next day, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know how. He wasn't the kind of man who checked in on people. Not anymore. He didn't know what came after leaving groceries at someone's door. He didn't know how to keep caring once the task was done. But by this second morning, something in him wouldn't let it go. He stepped into his car and told the driver to take him downtown. Not to a meeting, not to the airport, not to another. Hyres. Just there. Back to the apartment building. Back to her. The building looked even worse in daylight. The windows were dirty. Paint was peeling. Kids played in the parking lot with a ball made of duct tape. A man sat on the curb with a sign that read, "Looking for work. Any kind." Kane stepped out of the car. A pigeon landed nearby and startled him. It had been a long time since. He'd walked anywhere that didn't smell like cologne or polished concrete. He took a deep breath and headed toward the door. He didn't knock. Not yet. He just waited. Crossed the street. Watching Dad then, around 8 a.m., she came out Lila, wearing the same coat. Too thin for the weather, the sleeves too short, but her face brighter than he remembered. She was humming, skipping over sidewalk cracks. She passed by him without noticing. Heading toward a corner store 2 blocks down, he followed again, not to spy. Not out of guilt, but because something inside him was changing. And it terrified him. Lila walked into the store and spoke to the cashier like they were old friends. She handed him a handful of coins and pointed at a loaf of bread behind the counter. The man hesitated and handed her 2 loaves. She smiled so big it looked like it hurt. Kane stepped aside as she walked out, still humming, still completely unaware of the man watching her from the shadows of a forgotten city. He followed her back, but this time when she disappeared into the building, he didn't wait across the street. He walked up the stairs. Each creaking step felt like a test. 2nd floor, 3rd floor, apartment 3B. The same door, same chipped paint, same quiet behind it. He raised his hand to knock, then lowered. It raised it again, then knocked. Once, lightly. The door opened after a long pause. Leela blinked up at him, then squinted. "You again," she said. Factly. Kane shifted awkwardly. I was in the area." She crossed her arms. "You were in the area of a falling down building on the edge of nowhere." He smiled just a little. "Coincidence?" Lila narrowed her eyes. "You're bad at lying." "I know." She glanced behind her. Mama's sleeping, but you can come in, quietly. He stepped inside. It was warmer than he expected. There were blankets taped over the windows to block the draft. A small heater buzzed near the corner. A drawing of a cat was taped to the wall. The air smelled like tea, dust, and something homemade. He looked down and saw a row of stuffed animals on the floor, all with missing eyes or stitches coming undone. Lila saw him looking. "They're survivors," she said proudly. "Like you," he replied without thinking. She smiled but didn't answer. He glanced around. Maria lay asleep on the mattress, pale and still. "Is she okay?" he asked softly. Lila nodded. "Better, the soup helped. And the medicine." Kane swallowed. "I'm glad." Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small bag. "Here." Lila took it and peeked inside. Apples, juice boxes. A wrapped sandwich? A small bar of chocolate. "Whoa," she whispered. "You sure you're not Santa in disguise?" He chuckled. "I don't do beards." They sat on the floor. She told him about school, about how she hadn't gone in weeks, about how sometimes she watched YouTube videos in the library to learn things. "I taught myself how to fix our toaster." Mama cried. I thought it was because she missed toast, but she said she was just proud. Kane listened, really listened. For the first time in a long, long time, and he realized something. He didn't want this to be a one-time visit as he got up to leave. Lila looked up at him. "Are you going to come back?" He paused at the door. "I don't usually do that kind of thing." She tilted her head. "What kind of thing?" He hesitated. "Care?" She didn't smile this time. She just said, "You should try it. You're not as bad at it as you think." Then she closed the door gently. Dot and Alexander Kane stood in the hallway of a crumbling building, staring at a closed door, wondering how a girl with nothing could see right through him. Alexander Kane didn't sleep that night, not because of business, not because of deals, deadlines, or stock prices, but because of a little girl who handed him a cracked teacup and said he should try caring sometime. He stayed up staring at the ceiling of his penthouse, where silence echoed louder than traffic ever could. By morning, he'd made a decision. He left the office early, told his driver to skip the route downtown. This time, he went alone. He stopped at a grocery store, not the kind with valet parking or imported everything. Just a regular neighborhood store with dusty aisles and worn shelves. He filled a cart with things he thought they might need: canned soup, fresh fruit, toothpaste, medicine, socks, a warm blanket, 2 bars of chocolate, a bottle of cough syrup, and a small stuffed penguin. Its tag read, "Waddle, the Wonder Friend." He had no idea why he grabbed it. It just felt right. By the time he reached the apartment, it was already getting dark. The street lights flickered on. He climbed the stairs quietly, outside their door. He set the 2 grocery bags down, and this time, he left a note. No strings, no expectations. "It's just what I should have done a long time ago." He stood there for a few seconds, listening, then turned to leave. He was halfway down the hall when the door creaked open behind him. He didn't look back, but he heard the voice, soft, surprised, wary, "Mr. Kane." He turned. Maria was standing in the doorway. She looked tired, but stronger than he remembered. Her eyes met his. She wasn't smiling, not at all. He walked slowly back toward her. Lila was behind her, clutching the penguin. Maria's arms were crossed. "I know who you are," she said. Kane nodded. "I figured CEO of Kane Systems, Forbes cover 3 times. The man who laid off 2,000 workers in one day and said it was just optimization. He didn't deny it, just said, 'That's me. Why are you here?' She asked, 'Because your daughter asked me if I was going to eat my dinner, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since.'" Maria didn't blink. "Do you pity us?" "No," Kane said immediately. "Do you think we're a project you can fix?" "No." "Then what do you want from us?" Kane looked down, then back at her. "I don't want anything." Maria stepped into the hallway. Her voice was low, sharp, protective. We don't need saving. We've made it this far without help. We're not some charity story you can tell your rich friends." Kane swallowed hard. "I'm not trying to save you. Then what are you doing here, Mr. Kane?" There was a long pause. Then he said something. Even he hadn't admitted to himself until now, I think. "I came here because I need saving." Maria stared at him. For a moment, something shifted in her face. Then she stepped back inside. "Take your groceries," she said, "and don't come back." She closed the door softly. But finally Kane stood there for a few seconds. Not angry, not surprised, just empty. He looked down at the bags, then turned and walked away the next morning. The bags were gone. That night, Lila sat cross-legged on the floor, the stuffed penguin tucked under her arm. She didn't say much, just poked at her dinner and looked. Out the window, Maria was quiet too. Finally, Lila spoke. "He's not like other rich people, Mama." "How do you know?" "Because he looked sad when he smiled." Maria didn't respond. She just pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Outside, the wind howled inside. Silence filled the space between them, and on the 80th floor of a glass tower across the city, Alexander Kane sat alone in his office. No lights, no voice assistant, no noise, except the city buzzing far below. In front of him was the drawing Lila had made, folded and tucked into the grocery bag. A penguin, a girl, a tired woman, and a man. Standing beside them with a crooked smile, the caption, "Me, Mama, and Mr. A." Kane stared at it for a long time. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry." The next 3 days passed in silence. No groceries, no footsteps in the hallway, no quiet knock at the door. Just the sound of traffic outside, the occasional siren, and the hum of the old heater that rattled every time it turned on. Lila noticed she always noticed at first. She didn't ask about him. She just kept holding the little stuffed penguin tight at night, kept glancing at the door when someone walked by, kept hoping on the 4th night, she finally said something. "Mama, you didn't have to be so mean." Maria looked up from folding laundry. "Mean to Mr. A? You made him leave." Maria paused. "Baby, I did what I had to do. I don't trust men like him, but he helped us. That doesn't mean he gets to own us. He didn't try to." Maria sighed, rubbed her temple. "He's a billionaire, Lila. They only help when it makes them feel good." "So, Lila's voice was small. Her fingers fidgeted with the penguin's worn tag. What if he needed to feel good?" Maria stopped folding, sat down beside her daughter. "Sweetheart, I know you like him. I do. I get it. He was kind to you. That's rare, but sometimes people are kind. It's because they feel guilty, not because they care. He cared. You don't know that? Neither do you." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lila whispered something so softly, Maria almost didn't hear it. He smiled like someone who forgot how. The next morning, Maria got out of bed earlier than usual. She pulled on her coat and headed to the pharmacy around the corner, leaving Lila with the neighbor for an hour. When she returned, a small white envelope was taped to their door. No name, just their apartment number, handwritten in black ink. Maria pulled it off slowly, like it might explode. Inside was a receipt. Rent, paid in full. 3 months, no message. No signature, just a single printed word at the bottom, quietly. Maria stood frozen in the hallway. The neighbor peeked out of her door. "Oh," she said. "I was wondering who your secret guardian angel was." Maria didn't respond, just walked back inside, envelope in hand, heart racing, mind spiraling. That night, she sat across from Lila at dinner, quiet and tense. Lila chewed her food slowly. Her eyes flicked to the door again. Finally, Maria broke the silence. "He paid the rent." Lila didn't even look surprised. "He doesn't stop caring, Mama, even when you tell him to." Maria shook her head. "He shouldn't be doing this. It's not his place." "Why not?" "Because then we'll depend on him." "And what happens when he disappears?" Lila swallowed, looked straight at her mother. "What if he doesn't?" Maria stood, gathered the plates, and went to the sink. She didn't answer. She didn't know how. Meanwhile, across the city, Alexander Kane was sitting in a hospital parking lot. Not because of a meeting, not because of a conflor, a quizzible, 'cause he hadn't been able to stop thinking about a girl who gave him a drawing and a mother who looked at him like he was danger wrapped in a tailored suit. He had called a private doctor for Maria, quietly. No press, no cameras. It's just instructions to keep it confidential. Because despite her words, despite the way she told him to leave, he wasn't ready to let go. Not of them, not of what he felt when he was near them. But he also knew something else. He couldn't just keep showing up. He had to give them space. Trust had to be earned, not bought. He leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't want to fix something with money. He wanted to fix it with time. Back at the apartment, Lila was writing something on a piece of paper, crayon in hand. Penguin by her side. When she was done, she folded the paper into a square. Then, the next morning, she walked downstairs alone and taped it to the building's front door. The paper said, "You don't have to go, but you do have to knock, Lila." Rain came in hard that night. Not the quiet kind, the kind that turns sidewalks into rivers, that drowns out city noise, that makes even cab drivers pull over and wait it out. The power flickered twice in the apartment. Lila lit a candle and set it on. The edge of the coffee table. Maria had been coughing all day. Deeper, wetter, slower. Lila pretended not to notice. Pretended she didn't see the sweat on her mother's forehead. Or the way she shivered even under 3 blankets. She just wrapped the penguin in a scarf and held it like it could protect them both. "Mama, are you cold?" "Just tired, baby. Just tired." Maria tried to sit up, tried to reach for the tea Lila made, but her hand missed the cup. Her head slumped forward, and suddenly Lila wasn't pretending anymore. She rushed to her mother's side. "Mama, ... I'm okay." "No, you're not. You're not okay." Maria's eyes fluttered. Her breathing was shallow. Her lips pale. Lila grabbed the phone. Deadline. Storm knocked it out. She tried her tablet. No signal. Tried screaming out the window. The wind swallowed her voice. Then she ran. She didn't grab an umbrella, didn't stop for shoes, didn't even lock the door behind her. She just ran through the building, down 3 flights. Here at the street, her thin socks soaked through within seconds. Her coat flapped behind her like a flag in the wind. She turned right, then left. Then ran toward the one place she thought might still have its lights on. The tall glass tower, Kane's building. The lobby was empty except for one security guard, who stood the moment she ran through the doors, dripping water onto polished marble floors. Hey, can't be in here, please," she cried. "It's my mom. She's sick, and she's not waking up." The guard hesitated. Lila was shaking, soaked through, barefoot, eyes wide with panic. "I need Mr. A. Please, please just tell him I'm here." Kane was in his office, alone, reviewing numbers that didn't matter, trying to forget the look Maria gave him the last time he showed up, trying to ignore the voice that kept whispering, "Go back." Then his phone buzzed. "Incoming call. Security desk. URG&T," he answered. "What? Is it, sir? There's a little girl here. She says her mother is dying." There was a pause. "She called you Mr. Kane," didn't speak. He was already standing, already running to the elevator 2 minutes later. He burst into the lobby and stopped dead in his tracks. There she was, soaked, shivering, eyes full of panic. "Lila," she ran straight into him. No hesitation. "Please come." "I don't know what to do." Kane didn't hesitate either. He scooped her up, wrapped her in his coat, and shouted to his driver, "Bring the car around." Now, the ride was silent, except for Lila's breathing, heavy. Hitch. She wiped her nose on his sleeve. Didn't even apologize. He didn't mind. They reached the apartment in 12 minutes flat. Kane ran up the stairs, carrying Lila like she weighed nothing. Inside, Maria was still on the mattress, barely breathing. Kane knelt beside her and checked her pulse. She's burning up. He pulled out his phone. This is Alexander Kane. I need a medical team at. He paused. Looked at Lila. What's the address? She gave it. He repeated it. No ambulances. Private. Quiet now. Within 10 minutes, 2 private doctors and a nurse arrived. Kane stepped aside as they worked. He stood behind Lila, hands on her shoulders. Neither of them said a word. 30 minutes later, one of the doctors looked up. She's stable, but barely. She needs treatment. Somewhere clean, warm, supervised. Kane nodded. Take her to Kane Medical. We'll need clearance. You have it. Everything she needs. No red tape, no bills. Lila turned to him. She's gonna be okay. Kane nodded slowly. She's not alone anymore. Lila didn't cry. Not yet. She just leaned against him and said, "Thank you for not disappearing." By midnight, Maria was in a private hospital room, hooked up to machines, resting, breathing easier. Lila sat in a chair beside her. Kane stood by the window, watching the storm ease up. Finally, Lila looked up at him. Why did you come? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, because you ran through the rain. And I couldn't live with myself if I let you keep running alone. She looked down at the penguin, now dry and sitting on her lap. You can stay. He smiled. For real, this time? I think I will. The hospital room was quiet. Maria was asleep, pale but stable. Machines monitored her vitals with soft, steady beeps. Lila sat curled up in the corner chair, arms around her knees. The stuffed penguin in her lap. Kane stood near the window, hands in his coat pockets, watching the city stretch out beneath the night. No one spoke. Not for a long time. Then Lila broke the silence. You've done a lot for us. Kane didn't turn around. I haven't done nearly enough. I didn't have to do anything. He nodded, still facing the glass. You're right. I didn't have to. Then why did you? Kane closed his eyes. The answer wasn't easy. It never had been. He walked over, sat in the chair beside her, and looked down at his hands. When I was a kid, he said slowly, I had a little sister. Her name was Emily. Lila sat up straighter. Kane nodded. She died when she was about your age. Lila stayed quiet. Kane took a breath and kept going. We didn't have much growing up. It's just our mom and each other. Emily was ... bright, brave. She used to draw pictures of the future. Said I was going to be important one day. Said I'd help people. He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I told her I would. I promised. Said I'd grow up, make money, take care of her. And I meant it. What happened? Lila asked. Softly, Kane swallowed. She got sick. We couldn't afford the hospital. My mom tried everything. Loans, begging, selling furniture. But no one helped. Not even the doctors. Not when we didn't have insurance. He looked up at the ceiling, blinking. I watched her fade. One day, she stopped drawing. Stopped eating. And then, she was just gone. Silence. Just. The hum of machines. And 2 people. Sitting in that silence, sharing a grief that spanned decades. I promised I'd save her, Kane whispered. But I couldn't. And after she died, I promised myself I'd never need anyone again. I buried myself in work, in money, in isolation. You built the tower, Lila said quietly. Yeah, I built the tower. He looked at her, and then you walked right through the walls of it. With a question I'll never forget. About the food. He smiled gently. Yeah. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Lila said something that surprised him. I think she'd be proud of you. Kane blinked. Emily, Lila nodded. You saved us. And I think maybe you're saving yourself, too. Across the room, Maria stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. Her gaze landed on Kane and her daughter, sitting side by side like they'd known each other forever. Am I dreaming? She said weakly. Lila jumped up and rushed to her side. Mama. Kane stood, stepping back to give them space. You're at the hospital, Lila said. The good kind. Mr. A got the doctors. Maria looked over at him. You're still. Here I am. Kane hesitated. Then he said it simply, because you matter. You both do. Maria looked at him for a long time. Really looked, not like a stranger. Not like a rich man, but like a person. You could have walked away. She said, I almost did. Why didn't you? 'Cause I've walked away from too many things that mattered. Maria glanced at Leela. She's opened you up, hasn't she? Shez. Maria smiled faintly. She does that. Later that morning, after the doctors checked on Maria and gave her a new treatment plan, Kane stood in the hallway with Lila. While Maria rested, can I ask you something? Lila said. Anything? Do you still feel like you failed? Kane looked down the hall, then back at her. Every day. But you didn't fail me. He knelt beside her, looked her in the eyes. You gave me a second chance. That's more than most people get. Lila hugged him tightly, and for the first time since he was a boy, Alexander. Kane hugged someone back. It had been 3 weeks since Maria was admitted to the hospital. 3 weeks since. Leela ran barefoot through the rain. 3 weeks since Alexander. Kane realized he didn't want to be alone anymore. Things didn't change. Overnight, not for Kane, not for Maria, not for the city, but something had shifted, and it stayed. Shifted. Kane still wore suits, still signed contracts, still walked the polished floors of his office. But now, every Friday afternoon without fail, he left early. No one questioned him anymore because his board had seen the photo. Someone at the hospital, maybe a nurse, maybe a patient's family member had taken it. Kane in a worn hoodie, sitting in a plastic chair, Lila asleep on his shoulder. Maria sleeping in the bed beside them. No press, no spotlight. Just a man who looked human. The photo went viral. The headlines wrote themselves. Billionaire's secret visits to sick mother and daughter is Alexander Kane changing his legacy. Tech tycoon turns toward humanity, but Kane didn't respond to any of it. Didn't give interviews, didn't make statements. Instead, he quietly launched something new. He called it Project Second Chance. A community fund, anonymous recipients. No red tape, no questions asked. Eviction notices reversed. Medical bills paid. School lunches covered. Old heaters replaced in freezing apartments. All funded silently. No logos, no credit. It's help. Lila asked him once, why don't you want people to know? Kane smiled, because it's not about being seen. It's about seeing them. Maria was discharged from the hospital a week after that. She was still weak, but stronger than she'd been in years. Kane drove them both home himself. Not to the old apartment, to a new one. Same neighborhood, same school, but safer, warmer, with real windows that closed all the way and a heater that didn't hum like it was dying. Lila ran from room to room with wide eyes. We have a real kitchen. You have a real home, Kane corrected, gently. Maria tried to argue, tried to say she didn't want charity. Kane stopped her. This isn't charity, he said. It's a promise kept. One I made a long time ago to someone who didn't get her second chance. Maria looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. And didn't argue again. Weeks. Past seasons shifted. Lila returned to school. Maria began working part-time at a local library slowly, gently, on her own terms. Kane visited every weekend. No guards. No driver. Just him. A grocery bag. And a joke about how he still didn't know what kind of cereal kids actually liked. One afternoon, as they sat on the small balcony watching traffic below, Lila handed Kane something. A folded piece of paper. He opened it. It was a drawing. 3 stick figures, one tall with glasses, one with wild hair. One in a dress holding a penguin. Above them was a sun, and a tiny house. At the bottom it read, Us. Kane looked at it for a long time. You drew this. Lila nodded. It's you, me, Mama. Our new life, our life. Well, you're kind of in it now, aren't you? Kane didn't say anything. He just reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his wallet. He folded the drawing carefully and slid it inside right next to the photo of his sister. That night, before he left, Maria walked him to the door. "You." "No," she said. "Lila thinks you're a superhero now." Kane chuckled. "I've never been less qualified. You showed up when it mattered. That's more than most heroes do." He paused before stepping outside. "Do you think Emily would have liked her?" Maria smiled. "I think Emily sent her." Kane looked back at the small apartment. The laughter behind the door. The smell of something homemade. The soft light of a home that wasn't his, but felt like it could be. Maybe she did. He didn't drive straight home that night. Instead, he stopped by a quiet cemetery just outside the city. Found a headstone he hadn't visited in years. Emily Kane, 1990 to 1999. He knelt down, placed the drawing beside the flowers, and whispered, "I kept the promise, Em. Just not the way I thought I would." Then he stood up and smiled. Not the kind he wore in boardrooms. The real kind. Alexander Kane had never stayed in one place for long. Not really. He stayed in cities, in meetings, in headlines. But never in homes. Never at dinner tables. Never in conversations that didn't end with numbers, contracts, or strategies. Until now, Sunday dinners had become a tradition. Not by plan. Not by invitation. Just by showing up. One weekend at a time, and staying. Maria cooked simple meals. Rice, soup, roasted chicken when they could afford it. Kane brought groceries, sometimes flowers, sometimes dessert. He never showed up empty-handed, not because they asked, but because he didn't know how to walk in without offering something. Lila teased him constantly. "You still don't know how to open a juice box. You stir soup like you're writing a business deal. You wore that to dinner?" He took it all in stride, smiling, laughing, learning. One evening, as Maria was cleaning up the table, Kane stood and reached for a dish. She raised an eyebrow. "You're going to help? You don't think I can?" "I know you can't." He chuckled, picked up a plate, and dropped a fork on the floor. Lila howled with laughter. "Told you." Kane just grinned and shrugged. "I'm learning." It wasn't just the dinners. It was the little things. Lila calling him after school to tell him about his spelling test. Maria texting him photos of a library shelf she'd organized with his help. Quiet evenings, spent fixing a leaky faucet or replacing a broken chair. Things Kane had never done before, but found oddly satisfying. Things that mattered. He still ran a company, still wore suits, still made decisions that moved millions. But his phone was off at dinner now. His calendar didn't own his weekends, and for the first time since he was a child, he wanted to be somewhere that wasn't work. One Saturday, as they sat on the floor playing a card game Leela had made up, she looked at him and said, "You know your family now, right?" Kane looked up from his terrible hand. "I am." "Yeah, who decided that?" "Me, just like that." Lila shrugged. "Family is just people who don't leave." He didn't respond right away. Then he reached across the carpet, took her hand, and said, "Then I guess I'm staying." Later that night, as he and Maria stood in the kitchen finishing dishes properly, this time she spoke quietly. "She's happier." "So are you," he said. Maria nodded. "We've lived a long time thinking survival was enough. Strange to feel safe." Kane leaned against the counter. "I never thought I'd find a family again." Maria looked over at him. "You didn't find one, Alex? You built one." He didn't sleep in a glass tower that night. He slept on the couch in their small apartment. Blankets too short, cushions too lumpy. But the sound of Lila snoring softly from her bedroom and the hum of a heater that worked just fine made it feel like the most peaceful place on earth. The next morning, Lila woke him up with a bowl of cereal. Breakfast in bed, couch counts, right? Kane laughed and took the bowl. It definitely counts. That same week, Kane had a board meeting. Big decisions, quarterly results, strategy proposals. But when someone asked what he was most proud of that quarter, he paused. Put the numbers down then. said helping one little girl and her mother sleep through the night without wondering if the lights would turn off. The room fell silent, no one argued. Lila made a new drawing that afternoon. This one had a small house, a tree with purple leaves, 3 people on a bench, her mother, and Kane. The penguin sat on Kane's lap, wearing sunglasses at the top. It said, "This is what home looks like." Kane folded it up and placed it in the back of his wallet, right behind Emily's photo, and every time he opened it, every time someone asked him why he smiled more these days, he thought of that little bench and the girl who asked for leftovers and gave him everything instead. It was a Saturday morning, quiet, clear skies, a soft breeze coming through the open windows. Lila was at the kitchen table, drawing something new. Maria was reading a book, her feet tucked beneath her on the couch. Coffee in hand, dotting Kane was doing something strange. He was smiling to himself while folding laundry. Terribly, of course, but he tried, you know. Maria called from the couch. "You don't have to come over every weekend." "I know," he said. "We'd still let you visit if you skipped one." "I know. So why don't you—" Kane looked at her, then at Lila, then back at the wrinkled shirt in his hands. "Because this is the first place I've ever been where I don't feel like I'm just passing through." Later that day, he asked if they'd come with him somewhere. "Where?" Lila asked. "Not far, just important." So they went. Just the 3 of them. Kane drove. Out past the city, past the noise. The buildings, the shadows of glass towers. Too. A quiet cemetery, tucked between 2 hills. He parked beneath a tree, opened the back door, and waited. Maria stepped out first. Holding Lila's hand, Kane led them down a narrow path. They stopped in front of a headstone. Simple, clean Emily. Kane 1990 to 1999 bright. Brave and loved forever. He knelt down, placed a small bouquet beside the grave, then pulled something from his coat pocket. Lila's first drawing, the one with the 3 of them and the penguin. He had laminated it, and now he placed it gently at the base of the stone. "I used to come here and apologize," he said softly, "for not keeping my promise, for getting out and not looking back. But now I come to tell her. I finally did what I said I would." Maria stepped closer. "You saved someone." "No," Kane said. "They saved me." They stood there for a long time. No one rushed, no. One filled the silence with empty words. Lila picked a dandelion from the grass and tucked it beside the flowers. "Hi, Emily," she whispered. "You would have liked me." Kane smiled through glassy eyes. "She already does." Back at the apartment, Lila taped a new drawing to the fridge. It showed 4 people now. Her mom, Kane, and a girl with dark hair in a white dress standing just a little apart. Watching them, she wore wings. At the top it read, "She's still part of us." Kane stared at it, said nothing for a while, then reached into his wallet, pulled out Emily's photo, and handed it to Lila. "She used to draw just like you," he said. "But I think you're better," Lila beamed. "She looks kind." She was the kindest. Later that evening, after dinner and dishes, and Lila's usual bedtime battle with brushing her teeth, Maria and Kane stood by the door as always. But this time Maria didn't just say goodbye. She asked something instead. "Do you want to stay the night?" Kane blinked. "Really? You've got your spot on the couch?" Lila already laid out the blanket. She did. She said, "It's not right for family to leave in the dark." Kane smiled. "Then I guess I'm staying." He didn't sleep well that night. Too many thoughts, too much peace he wasn't used to. But he didn't mind, because at 2:13 a.m., when he got up to get water, he passed Lila's room and saw her fast asleep, her penguin tucked under one arm. He paused, watched her for a moment, then whispered, "You gave me more than food." At dawn, he sat by the window with a notebook. He wrote just one sentence on the first page. "I kept the promise." Then he closed it, took a deep breath, and watched the light rise over a life he never thought he'd have.